Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker here with a tea to take on a test drive. Let's see how it does. This is a Taiwanese tea, and I'll get a little bit more information about that in just a moment. But first I need to scoop out enough to cover the bottom, say, inch diameter of my roughly 3 ounce gaiwan. That looks pretty good. Water has been brought to an early boil. Started to kind of rumble. I would estimate that temperature to be around 200 degrees. That looks like I need to splash more water. I want a little bit of water to rest above the rim of my lid. Keeps the air from getting in and changing the color of my liquor. That looks good, just right. Let me cap this for just a moment, let some aromas build up here as I introduce this tea. This is from the Republic of Tea. It is their Wuyi Oolong. You can get 1.75 ounces for $20. Now, the product information page and this particular sample that I have here labels this. Wuyi is a region in mainland China, Fujian province, but this is described here and again on the web page as being from Taiwan. This is described here as rarest Formosan being Taiwan, silver-tipped Oolong tea leaves. So the name is a little confusing. Wuyi, again, mainland China. So properties of processing, styles of ways that those particular Wuyi leaves are harvested and processed are generally different in several aspects with a lot of your Taiwanese oolongs. So we'll look at this tea, talk about the dry leaf, the wet leaf, the liquors, see how it relates to those kind of two different traditions. First off, look at the dry leaf here in the aroma. Nice sweet wood. There's a grapevine, wild grapevine kind of woody component there. There's a sweet wood, something like perhaps a sandalwood, and there's a bit of. It's the right season for this. There's kind of the sweet autumn leaves that have fallen on the ground. You get a big pile of those. You stick your nose in that pile. There's a nice kind of woody, leafy sweetness there. That's present in this as well. Let me scoop out a few of these leaves and look at them and talk about them a little bit more. Scooping this out, I get what I notice first off is kind of three main colors present. There's a silvery color, which is associated with some of the silver tips that are present in this. And if I had to break that down, I would say the tips make up over 10 to 15% of the overall content here. There's a rust, reddish brown, milk chocolatey type of red brown kind of color, and then there's a deeper bister, which is more kind of a deep dark brown gray approaching black kind of color. Looking at these, this one I just picked up here is a leaf set. It looks like there's at least 1-2 leaves here, perhaps more. I dropped that, but I can pick that up. Again, some needles or buds, and I'm looking to see if those buds are attached to other leaves, because the one way you do with some you can do with some Taiwanese teas and other teas, you may harvest a particular tea. You get larger leaves, and then later on, on the following day or at other times, you can kind of supplement that harvest with some of the tea needles or tips, and kind of throw that into the mix to boost the overall count of needles in there, because needles are generally higher value. What I'm seeing so far are many, although I did pull out a leaf pair or leaf set, most of these are individual. Perhaps we'll see something different in the wet leaves here, but I would say at least 50% are individual leaves. They are crinkled somewhat along the length of the leaf, not rolled or balled. A lot of your your Wuyi Oolongs are, well, depending on the size and age, they can be rolled, but in many cases they are twisted along the length of the leaf. So setting that to the side now, let me angle my gawan a little bit. Middle finger and thumb hold the bowl here. Index finger keeps the lid in place and gets me a nice smooth pour. Shake out those last few drops. Now, we'll talk about that color in just a moment. But let me give this a shake and a smell and talk a little bit about this wet leaf here. Sweet raisin, dried dates. Those are some of the smells coming off here at this point. Still some of that grapevine, wild grapevine kind of smell. Again, a bit of a sweet autumn leaf type smell also. So it's warm. It's warm, sweet kind of autumn smells. Lightly baked element there. So it's again nice toasty kind of smell. Maybe a honey roasted kind of smell there going on. Let me pull out a few of these leaves now. So it's a nice, rich, warm, sweet aroma. Individual leaf here. Edges of this leaf are well intact, not any kind of raggedness. Color-wise, consistent in color. It's got more of a coppery type color, not blotchy. Pulling out this next one, a leaf set here. I got a bud and 2 leaves going there. A little bit fairly similar, a little bit more blotchy along the jagged teeth edge of that largest leaf in that set. Here's an individual leaf. Again, consistent in color, coppery, ragged edges, intact, a bit thicker, a bit more of a maybe a little bit older leaf there. So at a glance, it seems to be what I saw, what I gathered from the dry leaf. A mix of individual leaf and leaf sets. Again, at a glance, it looks to be about 50-50, or maybe 60-40, with 60 being the individual leaf. Okay, so I'll set that to the side now and get into the liquor here. Give that a swirl. That's a nice amber, again, amber coppery type color. The same rich woody smells, although of course not as intense as smelling the wet leaf directly. But those baked, those honey roasted smells coming off. The sweet smells coming off there as well. Let me give this a sip. The autumn leaf sweetness, the raisin grape type, moving over a bit towards more towards a little bit of a baked peach kind of tart sweetness there. Glaze that roasted peach with a little bit of honey, and you're right in there. And then serve it in a bowl, atop a bowl of, say, freshly fallen autumn maple leaves, and that's just kind of the richness of what you're getting here. It's got a bit of an astringency, and it's a gentle astringency. it pops up and gives kind of a light silken, nearly chalky type texture, and then that falls back to get into the aftertaste. You get a bit of that raisiny sweetness there. You get a residing kind of woody astringency going on there as well. But you combine that raisiny sweetness and the astringency, and it gives it a nice kind of a thick feel in the mouth. So looking at this tea, again, the name is confusing. I would have called this Fancy Formosa, or I would have called this Oriental Beauty. I think that would have more closely resembled the characteristics that people associate these characteristics with those kinds of teas, rather than a Wuyi Oolong. The composition of the leaf more closely represents something like Formosa Fancy or Oriental Beauty. The Taiwan origin also reflects that as well. I think there's a confusion of names going on here. But having said that, looking at it as a Formosa Fancy or an Oriental Beauty, aftertaste could have picked up a little bit more. You can get kind of a brandy type taste with some of as you get into the upper echelons of fine Oriental Beauty, for example. So with this one, safe, easy to handle, recognizable components of that in that category that I kind of designated, that I think it better fits in. I would give this one an 88. So again, something to introduce you to what that particular category has. Okay, so come back to Walker Tea Review to have tea reviews like this delivered directly into your inbox by subscribing. You can also subscribe to a separate area, the member content, and get more in-depth articles on things like varieties of tea grown and used in Taiwan, tea drinkers, tea ceremony, and others.